this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Wait a minute. You ain't heard nothing yet.
Rosebud, I've seen things you people wouldn't believe.
Okay, let's do this.
Cheers, Thomas.
Cheers, Nicholas.
Welcome, everyone, to the Video Lineup podcast.
Episode number 2.
I am Nick Rickard.
I'm Thomas Barnes, and we are doing Casablanca today, 1942, classic movie, Humphrey Bogart, Ingrid Bergman, Casablanca.
All those
That's a
great
place,
actors, yeah.
All those great things. This is movie number 2 in our list, but it's also movie number 2 in the AFI Top 100 of all time. Mm-hmm. And according to a video I was watching, who was I watching? One of these things. They were saying that it features in more top lists of best movies of all time than Citizen Kane does.
Really?
Yeah, just because it's got such broad appeal. We'll go into in a moment whether you think it has broad appeal. But what is the synopsis of this movie? What is it about? Give us the synopsis.
It's about a love triangle. I'm terrible at synopsis.
Shall I give it a crack?
Synopsises? Is that
synopses?
Synopsis.
Synapses? I can get the IMDb app and just read the synopsis of it, but I'm going to give it a try anyway.
Yep.
This is the story of Rick and Ilsa. I forgot her name, Ilsa. Rick and Ilsa, and all of it's set during World War II. It's set in Vichy French-controlled Morocco, Casablanca, that's aligned with the Nazis. And it is like it's sort of a love triangle of sorts. There is a love triangle going on, but it's almost more about the journey of this one guy coming to terms with which way in life he's going to go. Is he going to be a selfish, sort of seared feelings sort of person who just is out for himself, living short term? Or is he going to honour love and honour something bigger beyond himself and, by virtue of that, make the world a better place?
Yeah.
That's probably the wanky version of a synopsis. What does IMDb say? Yeah. A cynical expatriate American cafe owner struggles to decide whether or not to help his former lover and her fugitive husband escape the Nazis in French Morocco. That was probably written.
Good job.
That was probably written by ChatGPT. Mine had human emotion. That was definitely, but that was a much better synopsis in terms of getting it across quick enough. Now we've gone through this. What are the details? We've already said it's 1942. Mm-hmm. The budget for this movie was about $940,000. I'm assuming that's what from what I said, it didn't say like in $1942, but I'd assume it would have to be because. If it was comparable to now, there's no way. It had been about 940,000.
So I read somewhere that they didn't have as big a budget as what they normally have because of the war.
Yes. That's true. Yeah, I the only set in this movie that was built exclusively for this movie, as far as I'm aware, was Rick's Diner. Is it Rick's Diner or Rick's Cafe Americain? It's Rick's Cafe Americain.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's actually in Australia. Here we have Movie World. Oh, that was the mic stand, not me. And they have all of these locations, sort of, from the movies. And one of the cafes is Rick's Cafe Americain or American, and that's in the like main section there. And it's just a restaurant. It's like an all you can eat sort of sizzler, sort of smorgasbord sort of situation. And as a kid, I had no idea that it was associated. There's a whole section that's made like Casablanca. And it's, I didn't realize that until the first time I saw this movie. I'm like, there you go. Personal trivia that's of no use to anyone. But
cafe in the movie didn't give off that vibe.
Didn't give off a Movie World Queensland vibe.
Like a smorgasbord.
No, it didn't give off a smorgies kind of vibe, did it? It's got, we've said Ingrid Bergman, Humphrey Bogart, Conrad Veidt, Peter Lorre in a very short-lived role. He's the guy, isn't he like Igor or something? Okay, I'm not going to try my Peter Lorre impersonation. But you're right. Like the movie had, they weren't able to spend much money on it. So there's a lot of the sets that are in this movie were pre-existing sets on the lot at the studio, and they just had to repurpose them for this movie because there was rationing of materials. Yeah, for World War II.
And someone I was listening to, again, I'm terrible at remembering names. They're saying not a lot of the actors actually wanted to be in this movie. There was other movies being filmed at the time, which were sort of
Really?
higher on the list. So Ingrid Bergman really wanted to be in something else. But they chose another actor, so she settled.
She had to go this.
Yeah.
I think as we do this, I want to learn more about like the studio system because they'd have stars that were contracted to certain studios.
Yeah, that was the thing that.
Yeah, and they would say, "Oh, we want them for this movie. Can you let us? You know, can 20th Century Fox? I don't know what one of the things they had, RKO or something." And you know, can you release them for from their contract for one movie over here at Warner Brothers? And they'd have to negotiate and swap other actors for deals and stuff because they weren't free agents. Basically, they had to work for the studios.
I think Ingrid had signed, or her agent had signed her for another movie, which was more important than Casablanca. And anytime the directors wanted to do something to her hair, they had to contact them and get approval first.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
The directors of Casablanca, the director of Casablanca.
Yeah.
Michael Curtiz.
Yeah.
What else has he done? Let's have a quick squiz and see what else he's done because actually, you know what we should do? Let's just cut to the chase. Nick, what'd you think of this movie?
I came into it with literally no expectations. I didn't know Casablanca was a place, so I didn't know what it was about. But I enjoyed it. I think it is one of those movies where, you know, you could. I don't know if I'd be drawn to it again and again, but I enjoyed watching it. The story was interesting. I think most of the actors did a pretty good job of their characters. So.
Do you feel like the reason that you wouldn't be drawn to it again and again is because it is an old movie with a different pace and a different style of acting and a different storyline, and it sort of feels like that as much as you enjoy those sorts of movies, it is as difficult as we've found it to carve out time for a movie that feels like it could be hard work.
I feel like Citizen Kane I'd be drawn back to because I feel like it was a work of art the way it was shot, and it was quite interesting, whereas this was telling a story. I don't think the way they shot it was necessarily artistic.
Ouch.
But
well, let's have a discussion here.
Yeah, but I don't know anything about.
No. This is not what this is. This is not like you say things and then I tell you if you're right or wrong.
Yeah.
There's no such thing.
Yeah.
You can feel that way, and then I will feel passionately either in agreement or in opposition.
Like there were shots, the way lighting was done, which was great, but I think Citizen Kane took it to the next level with the angles and.
Well, that's the mark of Citizen Kane.
Yeah,
really is. We've already talked about with Citizen Kane last week, but just reflecting on it, it really did. It had very epic shots that drew attention to themselves. I heard Roger Ebert. He's the guy I was thinking of before. I was watching him do like a talk through Casablanca, and he referred to Citizen Kane where people would think about Citizen Kane in terms of shots, like. You would think of the shot. I picture like 4 moments in Citizen Kane right now, and you can picture 4 different moments very quickly that come to mind, especially as he meets all of these new. I mean, they just keep flooding. All the different moments that are photographic. Pause it. Look at that stunning moments. And that was unique in the time because, and we talked about how that was Orson Welles thinking differently, what he wanted to see, and he's sharing his title card with the DP, Greg Toland. And in this movie, what you get is a bit more of the classic Hollywood style where they shoot master shots. They would shoot a master, which is basically a wide shot, you know, something on a dolly or whatever, and you'll get all the action in the scene. Yeah. And if there's time, they get some close-ups.
Yeah, okay.
You know, to help punctuate the scene basically. And then you can move on to the next scene, get the scene in a master, get a couple of essential close-ups, move on. And that's how they'd shoot movies. And they just do them all the way like that. You watch old movies and that's a lot. That's not reducing all old movies to that, but that is just a bit of the system. And you see that in this movie, but also what you see in this movie is Michael Curtiz, and this is only like hearing a little bit about what apparently he said on this, how he liked to shoot the movies and stuff, is that he didn't want to move the camera without it being motivated, and he didn't want to have lighting that just felt like typical Hollywood lighting. So there is this halfway in this movie. It's not really, it's like halfway. It's like not on a spectrum. It's just another way of doing things. But there's moments where he utilizes like shadows beautifully.
Yeah, I totally agree with it.
Yeah, and things in this movie you see, like just you've said what do you think? If you were to give it a star rating, the movie, what do you think?
I always find it difficult because I don't know what I'm comparing it to.
You don't have to
like
compare
10,
it.
but you've got to have something at 10 and then work your way down.
Okay, let's just take a pause out of Casablanca here. What's a 10?
I don't know.
Come on. A Back to the Future is a 10 for me. That is a 10.
Yeah.
But they're all different genre kinds of
Yeah,
10s,
yeah.
you know. But this movie for me is it's right up there. It's a 10. This is a 10.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think this movie is like Back to the Future and things that I grew up with that have a different attachment, and they have got the technology and the music and the color and the energy and the fact that there's 3 of them.
Yeah.
That I am attracted to watch and rewatch with, and especially it's easier to watch them with kids. Casablanca less so.
Yeah.
But it is still, for what it is and the genre it's in and the age. Oh my gosh, I love this movie. I loved it
Have you seen
loved
it
it.
before now?
once before,
When was
about
that?
7 years ago, maybe 6 years ago.
Was there anything significant
No.
about that time?
In fact, to be honest, I watched this movie the first time and I remember thinking, I really want to see Casablanca because I've just heard about Casablanca and I've seen the posters, and I really wanted to just see it. And I anticipated that I would not particularly enjoy it, but I was going to force myself to watch it so that I would have some exposure to old Hollywood. And I loved it the first time. And to be honest, this is one of those movies for me that, as you watch the movie, sometimes you check them, click the remote, see how much longer's left because you're tired or whatever you're doing. Or that's how it is. I'm trying not to do that. And I checked this first time around, just boom, it just flew by.
Yep.
The hour and 45 minutes, it's a good run time. Citizen Kane's too long. I like Citizen Kane. It's not a criticism. It's just so long in 2023 when you sit down to watch that and it's not uplifting, or maybe I've seen it too many times now, but I think it is a really, really fantastic movie. But I find myself checking my watch towards the last sort of 20 minutes of that movie that it's a little bloated for me, and I can't work out what you could cut.
Yeah.
I'm not offering suggestions of what Citizen Kane should cut.
Yeah.
But for me, the duration it is a big factor. And then this movie, I was just checking because I was watching it and my wife fell asleep on the couch. She was just laying next to me and fell asleep. And I was looked at the time. I was like, oh, maybe it's getting a bit late. I checked. It's only 5 minutes left of the movie, or 10 minutes left of the movie. And, and I was like, oh wow, and it's just like boom, 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 boom. Next thing. There's always something new. It's not an action movie or anything, but the story moves forward.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
There's no
I
fat
don't
in
think
this movie.
Yeah, I wouldn't cut anything out. I definitely enjoyed it. I don't want to give the impression that I didn't. I'd probably say 8.5 maybe.
8.5 out of 10. It's very good. It's very good. Next week is it? Well, the thing is, The Godfather, they're coming up pretty soon, and that's a rock solid 11 out of 10 for me. So, but maybe on the next viewing, I'll think, oh, this is a 6. What was I thinking the other times? But what do you think of the performances in this film? Because it's a different style of acting to even probably Citizen Kane.
I was questioning Humphrey Bogart for a little bit. I was just pondering about sort of whether it was convincing that he would be a love interest of Ingrid. What's her character's name?
Ingrid Bergman. Yep.
What's her character's name?
Ilsa. Yeah, he
Yeah.
he was 42-ish, around that at the time.
And he does look quite a bit older.
Well, he's a heavy smoker.
Wasn't he? How old was he meant to be in the movie? Is it a bit younger?
I think 37, they said.
Yeah.
Which I was like, holy moly, I'm 37.
Yeah.
You're 37.
Yeah. I don't look that old.
In 1942,
I hope
you might have, especially if you've been running guns in Ethiopia and then fighting someone in Spain, and then you had to escape Paris and you smoked a lot and you drank a lot and stayed up late nights. Maybe we'd look like that.
But the more I thought about it, I think that he played the role quite well. And I'm not sure with like acting back then, did all actors sort of choose a persona that they wanted to act in most of their movies? They were like this type of character.
No, I think that they had more prescription placed upon them than they probably do now.
Yeah.
And look, actors now seem like they probably are prescribed things, right? Unless you're Leonardo DiCaprio or someone he's always a touchstone for. But I'm sure there's like plenty of actors that step into a position and they go, this is how I want to play this part. And then depending on the director turns around and says, no, thank you. And then they either whoever's the most powerful stays in the room and the other one has to bugger off.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was something similar to that. I know that in this film, Sidney Greenstreet, who plays the sort of black market guy who wears the fez, he interestingly, he started his like become famous movie career. I'm like to learn more about him. I heard when he was 62. That's when he started his career. Yeah. But anyway, he wanted to be fully dressed as someone, a Moroccan, like he'd fully assimilated.
Yeah.
He got the fez. That's the most he got. But when he's in Rick's, I think he doesn't wear the fez. But the director completely kiboshed that whole idea. And so there's like an example of what you're talking about, where an actor wanted to play a character a certain way. Yeah, albeit just in relation to the costume. But that's where we'll get to Marlon Brando. And as far as my film history is aware, that's where different kind of performances really step in because, like in terms of this movie, the police chief gives the best performance, I think.
Yeah.
Whatever they call him, Renault. Yeah. I was watching it and I was thinking, occasionally, admittedly taking myself out of the movie, if this movie was made today, and I know that like in the 2000s, I read that Madonna wanted to remake it with Ashton Kutcher as Rick and her as Ilsa. That would be horrifically bad.
That would be great if they did it now.
The two of them right now.
The way...
That'd be a horror movie. Well, he might be all right. I don't know. I liked him in that Jobs movie that I'm probably not meant to like. But
Madonna's had a bit too much work done.
Yeah. But ouch. We'll have to cut that part out. We're not picking on people here. No. People's personal choices.
Yeah.
Yeah, she does look kind of like... It would be a horror movie, definitely. I was watching it thinking, if this movie was made now, how would these characters be portrayed? And I feel like, although it's corny, and many people say like this movie's filled with corny things and plot lines and characterizations and stuff, I feel like we would ham up the drama of the romance and the conflict beyond what it needs to be, because it would overtake the movie. And then like you've got the police chief and he likes to get it off with pretty young things that come in and need a visa. Yeah, no matter the circumstances, evidently, because there's a moment in this movie where you realize, and it is a turning point for Rick, that this young woman comes to him, and especially for the time with the code and all that sort of stuff, that she's trying to insinuate that police chief man wants to, if I offered him sex, basically, would he give us a visa? And my husband doesn't ever have to know, even though we're newlyweds and I'm a young girl. And you immediately get this realization of the difficulty of their position, which makes Rick's moment, the thing he does later on in his final turnaround, even more beautiful. But you realize how precarious it is, and then you think in today's cinema, the police chief would just be played as just this sinister, evil person, this slimy, sleazy, vile thing, and they'd probably waste screen time showing things you don't need to see about him, because that wouldn't matter.
It's less respect, I think, for the viewer. Like I find we've only watched 2 so far, but I'm having to pay attention to dialogue to actually understand.
Goes
what's
quick,
going
doesn't
on.
it?
Because in modern movies, it's sort of in your face. Like you can tell what's going on by they make sure you know
Yeah.
what's going on. Whereas with this, there are some subtle conversations. You're like, oh wow,
Yeah.
you've really got to pick up on that.
Yeah, I feel like they're just better characters. You know, one of my favorite TV shows is Parks and Recreation, and part of the reason that I love that show is because there really is no characters to dislike. Even the characters that are bad, they're the baddies. They're not baddies, but they're the what is it when it's antagonists in the story. I just sound like the Grudge, the antagonists. Sorry, they're likable. They're real people. They're likable. They're cartoonish a little bit. That's the point of it, and that's kind of what these movies, old movies, seem to understand is that it's World War II. Apparently this script hit a reader in Hollywood. They still have probably, but in the studios then they had readers, so a script would hit the table of someone who's extremely low ranking. They'd read it and then decide whether they want to move it up the ranks.
Yeah, okay.
And the reader read this script the day after Pearl Harbor happened. So you would imagine that it would read, you'd be reading all these things into the drama there.
Yeah.
And they just realize life is tricky and you want to go to the movies and you don't necessarily, the Nazis are bad.
Yeah.
We know that.
Yeah.
We already know they're bad. We don't have to, you're not going to try and humanize them. You know that the Vichy controlled France people, they're probably slimy, they're probably corrupt, they're probably all these sorts of things. Let's let them be human as well and find out.
That's what I found. I don't know if it's confronting, but the reality that as humans, I think we can see ourselves in a lot of these characters, even the slimy ones. We're like, oh, how would we act in that situation?
True. Yeah, that's so true.
Like if our life was on the line, would we just toe the line?
Yeah, you find yourself. I gravitate more towards movies that don't have a clear these. Yeah, it's just this is very good. This is a very good movie. All the characters have different, flaws and let's talk about Rick for a second. Then let's talk about what he goes, because there's a moment where the police chief says to him, "You're a sentimental at heart" or something.
Yeah.
And you see the flashback earlier in the film where he flashes back to Paris with Ilsa and this romance. And he's, just at the drop of a hat suggesting let's get married and, clearly not this, stern sort of dude that he is when you first meet him in the movie. What do you think? Did you sort of see the transformation? Was it powerful? I mean, spoiler alert. This is a whole spoiler alert, this whole podcast. But did you see the transformation as very powerful? Because that's basically the culmination. That is the peak of this movie, is his transformation. It is not.
Yeah.
This is the definition of a movie where the main character goes on a journey and turns around completely different.
Yeah, you're not I wasn't sure sort of what decisions he was going to make as he went through this journey, and I actually I don't know if I heard or read that a lot of the actors didn't know how it was going to finish either. So they were sort of, I think that played a part in how they acted their roles because they were uncertain with where, with where they were going.
That's right. I think there was the scenes in Paris where Ilsa and Rick. So I watched this movie and it just glided through and I just forgot all their names.
Yeah.
Ilsa and Rick are together. The director didn't even know whether or not Ilsa's affections were going to end up with Rick or who she loved.
Yep.
And she asked, Ingrid Bergman asked how she should play it. And the director said, just sort of play it halfway between. Because, he didn't even know. I can't imagine. I'm sure there was lots of things they changed from the script. I think actually they did. I think that was in the original thing. So it was based on a play called Everybody Comes to Rick's. and I think I read that this podcast is gonna be a heck of a lot of just us saying, I think I read something.
Just cut. that
Basically, yeah, we do. We're reading these things and we're sort of like assuming it was. She was actually was in love with Rick, and I think in the end runs away with Rick, something like that. That was in the original story, and it was just you read it now and you go, oh yuck, that would have made a horrible movie.
Yeah.
Very unsatisfying.
I did read somewhere that at that time they probably couldn't in the movies have her leave her husband for Rick. Like the public wouldn't accept that.
Yeah. Do you know what? Sometimes the code just made better movies. I'm sure that there were plenty of stories they couldn't tell that would have been interesting. But I mean, what's particularly virtuous about someone just abandoning their husband when he's probably preoccupied with, I don't know, saving the world. He's not a bad guy. I mean, there's all this unbelievable stuff in the movie. Like,
It's
just
interesting what society prioritizes, because I think if it was a modern version, they'd lift up the love. She should really follow her heart and go with Rick.
Yeah, I think we unfairly malign the people and the eras before us because of the obvious, political or social issues of the time that we would not stand for today, racism and things of the which is interesting. I didn't hear much talk about how the piano player Sam,
who was going to be Ella Fitzgerald or something.
It was going to be a woman.
Yeah, they had a few female singers.
Yeah, I think he's portrayed he does a really good Dooley something. I don't know enough. But
who's a drummer.
Yeah, he was a drummer. You see in the movie he's very clearly faking piano. It's just like he's just massaging a bag of rice or something.
Playing bongos.
Yeah, playing bongos. Definitely a percussion instrument of some sort going on very gently.
Yeah.
Aside from all that, I do think we unfairly malign the people and therefore the stories that they told each other from the bygone era in not necessarily people who appreciate movies, but in maybe popular culture.
Yeah.
Because they had some values in there that ultimately just they make better stories, And I think this is the generation who were going off to war. This movie is, I might say interestingly a lot, but this movie is populated with, I think in the main cast there's only 3 Americans.
Yeah.
The rest are all immigrants, recent immigrants. The man who plays a Nazi actually had fled Conrad Veidt. Anyway, he was born in Berlin and he's German, and his wife she's probably dead now. It's a long time ago.
Yeah.
Jewish.
Yeah.
And so they left Germany, hated the Nazis, and so he took these roles and he would play a Nazi in these. Apparently, what I was reading is that he played a lot of Nazis. I think I should probably know that, being like the film Conrad Veidt known for playing Nazis in all sorts of movies. But he played them so despicably so that he thought that would be his part of the war effort, is to drum up passion against these evil people. Yeah. And he does a great job. But the whole film's populated with people who had ultimately fled this conflict in Germany. It's very real, very... Yeah. I can't think of it. I'm sure there's many movies at the time, but this is a very, very famous one. But it's just like so directly connected to the story it's telling. These people literally did. Apparently, a lot of the other Nazis that were, German uniforms and stuff were Jewish German Jews. Yeah, dressed up as Nazis. Yeah, running around in California for a movie. Yeah, it's an interesting picture.
Yeah, who's the lady that acted as Yvonne, Rick's love interest at the start of the film?
Madeline something.
Apparently this was her first movie in America, and she had fled, I think it was Sweden.
She's French.
Hang
on. Who are you talking about? His main love interest? Ilsa?
not Ilsa, Yvonne.
Oh yeah, so Ilsa is Swedish. Ingrid Bergman is Swedish.
But where was Yvonne, the actor, from?
Who's Yvonne?
That was his first love.
Oh yeah, Yvonne, the character.
Madeline
LeBeau.
LeBeau.
Yeah. So we were both
that
halfway. We
was-
weren't connecting. We were just sort of flailing about trying to high five, and we weren't connecting. Yes, she's from France.
Yeah, so she just fled. So this was her first movie, and I think the singing scene, a lot of the immigrants, like the tears that you could see in the film, were actual, real tears because it's sort of so close to home.
It's a genuinely powerful film, and only by virtue of the fact that you and I could just, because we're friends, we could just chat about this forever. Do we have any final thoughts on what we think? Would we recommend this movie to people?
I would. I don't know if I'd recommend it to everyone. It's interesting. I don't know if
It's going to be the same way with all these movies, really.
Yeah.
It's going to be...
because a lot of them are old and
Yeah, these old movies, you kind of just got to slow yourself down. It's a form of saying, I'm not going to put Netflix on tonight. I'm not going to watch YouTube. I'm going to try something different. And I think with Casablanca, you won't have to work hard. I do think with Citizen Kane, it is more dry. The characters are not likable.
yeah,
I don't
more people will like
Everyone,
Casablanca,
people will like Casablanca.
But I like the themes. I like the challenges of character. And the story was good. And the way it finished was
And it's beautiful. And it's nice to say, hey, I've seen that movie. It's loaded with quotes and things that you'll definitely have heard before. And I think it's a good time. I think genuinely it's a good time at the movies.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna give this one a 10. I don't know what
8.5.
we're gonna go different every single time we do
Last
a
week
movie.
was out of 5.
It was out of 5. Next week's out of 3.5. So start working in decimal points. So we've got I think we've probably pumped in a bunch of didn't you know trivia. Anything else that was trivial sort of thing that was very interesting that you thought it would be worth sharing? The audience is waiting with bated breath.
No, I didn't find out as much about this one as Citizen Kane.
Now, Citizen Kane almost begs for, because it's always sat atop the list of best movies of all time, or at least for a long time it feels like it has. So you find yourself just finding heaps of random trivia out about it. This movie felt like it was like it was part of a system, and then you sort of the bits of trivia, the bits of I will say one final thing I like about this movie, and I think I enjoy the comedy in it, the little subtle moments of comedy, especially to do with that pickpocket that sort of crops up a couple of times. And there's moments at the beginning. I can't remember the large guy, the fat dude who's the waiter. I think he's Hungarian or something. He's a Hungarian actor. He's so good, and he gets bumped into by the pickpocket, and you as the audience know that they've got this guy's dodgy, but that guy obviously clearly knows and just quickly checklists himself, and then he has some dialogue with some staff there, and just little moments here and there. It's not like crack up, laugh out loud moments, but it's just human little bits of comedy every now and then peppered a bit.
I think I enjoy these sorts of movies the most that tackle some darker themes or heavier themes, but with comedic sort of breaks scattered throughout.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt, does it? It makes it more fun. Look, what else are you going to do? You just sit around being miserable all the time, where you talk about, whether or not you can forgive people, and it's like, how do you talk about big themes and heavy stuff and also have a good time?
Yeah.
You come to the Video Lineup podcast. That's how you do it.
Yeah.
Have a few beers, probably ramble for 45 minutes. Well, I've had fun. And next week, have you had fun?
I have.
That's good. That's an afterthought. I was just going to move straight on and not even ask you.
Feeling a bit tired, but
I also am feeling tired. But I've enjoyed talking about Casablanca. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in.
Hope you enjoyed.
I hope you enjoyed too. Citizen Kane was number 1. Casablanca was number 2. We can officially check them off. Do you know what number 3 is?
Is The Godfather.
It is The Godfather, 1972, Francis Ford Coppola, one of the
They
best
haven't
movies ever
clumped
made.
them together. It's just the...
No, you can't put Godfather Part 3 in there. Although he did just release last year a special cut of that, but we won't be watching that as part of this.
Okay.
I mean, maybe we'll take a little sideshow. We've got The Godfather coming up next.
Yeah.
But there's Part 1 is 1972, Part 2 is 1974.
And it's in colour.
Yes, it is in colour. So it's going to be great. It is set in the 40s, though. We can't escape this bloody 1940s era. Is it set in the 40s? I think it is 1945. It'll be after the war, late 40s and into the 50s.
Yeah.
Because it opens with, spoiler alert, Michael coming back from war. Pretty sure it's the late 40s. There is a great series. Before we leave the podcast, all the podcast listeners and viewers, all of you out there, all thousands and thousands of screaming fans as you listen to this podcast, there is a TV series here in Australia. It was on Paramount Plus. I'm pretty sure it'll be. I think it's an original, and it is called. I will have to find out what it is called, and I highly recommend it. If you have seen The Godfather before, I will find this movie. I will find this podcast. Keep everyone entertained while
It's a podcast.
The podcast. Sorry, this.
On The Godfather?
Yeah, a podcast on The Godfather. Actually,
Okay.
that'd be pretty cool, I think, wouldn't it? Let's do a little trick I like to do on IMDb if you can't find it is if you think about one of the actors that was in the movie, then you think about any movie that you can think of that they were in. I don't need to look it up anymore because while I was rambling, it came to me. But then you look at them up and then you go down, you click on them and then you search through other movies they've been in.
Yep.
The TV series is called The Offer. And it is about Albert.
It's a TV series.
Yeah, it's called.
You said it was a podcast.
I'm mixing my words. The TV. We've got 3 cameras set up here. This is basically a TV series.
Yeah.
This is episode number 2.
Yeah, it's a podcast.
They're the same thing. Who said that they're any different? The Offer. It's about how the producer Al Ruddy basically got The Godfather made. The making of The Godfather is almost as interesting as the actual film,
Yeah. Okay.
and it's as is interesting in my view.
Yep.
Although the movie is an absolute classic. So
I've watched it once.
You've watched it once? How long ago?
It was a while. 3-4 years ago.
3 or 4 years. Preview of coming attractions, people. Next week, The Godfather. It's going to be good. Casablanca,
Can't wait.
10 out of 10. Casablanca.
8.5.
You've just gone up half a point.
What did I say? 9?
Do I hear 9.25? I'm having fun. I am having the time of a life watching these movies. Side note, before we wrap up, it is a challenge to watch old movies. I know we've sort of said it and alluded to it and peppered it in amongst there. Are you finding it difficult to carve out the time or to feel like you want to sit down to watch a movie that feels a little like homework?
No, like I'm not a big watcher of TV, so I've been sort of looking for something to watch. So to go through this list, I've been looking forward to it, and Tess and I have been setting aside either Friday or Saturday night to watch them.
You're good.
Yes, yes.
I feel like that's the optimal way to do that. I do feel a little bit like, and I'm looking forward to getting to Gone with the Wind, movies I've never seen before.
Yeah.
But wrapping my head around, because I have come out of this YouTube, like I used to watch all these old movies, and then it feels like the last sort of 6 or 7 or 8 years, just getting wrapped up in YouTube or TV series. Like everything is serial series, and it's like the new thing.
And the story
And
drags.
drags. It's basically it's days with our life. Everything has become days of our lives.
Yeah.
And you get these streaming services that open up, and you get all this content thrown at you, and everything's new and fresh. They don't care if you've ever watched any of the old stuff. Things that were huge hits or everyone was watching, no one cares about anymore.
Yeah.
It's very like everything's the Tamagotchi of television or the yo-yo of television.
Yeah.
They're all fads.
Well, these last 2 movies I've had to buy because they're not on the streaming.
That's the exactly. It's like they don't conform to these consume. Like no one's going to get a streaming subscription because Casablanca's on it all. So
I had to pay $4.99 for Casablanca.
but you know what? Why didn't you save some money and just rent it for $4.99?
No.
Who? Someone has got to get in the pricing. I would have paid $6.99 to buy it if you were offering it to rent for $4.99. You know, but yeah, I have found that difficult. Even though I know I'm going to enjoy it, it's like getting out of bed and it's cold or something. You know. Oh, we are tired. Evidently, I did get out of bed too early. But you know, if you get out of bed and you get started with your day, you're going to feel better. Everything's going to be better. I'm talking a lot with my hand here. Yeah. But when you are in a warm bed and you're watching your YouTube, not saying you watch YouTube in bed, mixing metaphors here, but if you're in the comfort zone or your typical habit, I do find it difficult to step out and watch something that I can't just click on Netflix and find it at a drop of a hat and click play. Yeah. You know, you do have to buy this.
You've got to work for it.
You do have to work for it. And in the case of some of these movies, they're freaking long. We're about to go and watch the next two movies are long ass movies.
Yep.
And we're, you know, in an age where they just don't do that anymore. Strangely enough, though, we will watch 11 hours of a television series over 4 days or 2 days or sometimes 1 day or something. Yeah. But the idea of a 3.5 hour movie is kind of absurd to us. So, yeah, I thought I'd just get your thoughts on that.
Yeah.
You've already offered them. I'm not. Yeah. But.
Potentially as we get to, you know, the 30th or 40th episode, I'll be over it. But at the moment, I'm enjoying the new content.
Yes. Yeah, it is the new old content. Part of this for me, just speaking personally, is about forming a new habit.
Yeah.
Which is stepping out of what I used to do when I was young and single. Not that I'm old and I'm not single anymore, but when I was younger, you just hire a DVD. Remember going to the video store? You'd hire a DVD or you'd hire a VHS even a lot longer before that and put it in. And there's something about that act of going and getting it or buying it, the era of buying and collecting DVDs, that you had a higher level of investment in this work of art, that you press play and you sat down and you wanted to watch it. It was an exciting thing to watch a movie. Now, I would almost welcome a subscription to AFI Top 100 movies of all time at the local cinemas, that I had to be there at a certain time and sit down and watch the movie in a cinemas, and it cost me $20 a week as opposed to $4.99, because it would just create this level of investment that I think would break through this daily, you know, content consumption that ultimately hasn't got as much to say as 10 minutes of Casablanca. Am I getting too poignant for this late at night?
No,
or is
I
this
don't
bullshit?
feel like I should add anything to that. I think you're right.
Cool. I need to get a side podcast where I just sit here and I'd have a picture of your face just stand there, and I'd just be like, this is what I think of life.
Yeah. Well,
I'm going to have another beer.
Like I'm a musician, and I think the way we consume music is troublesome as well. And I've recently bought a record player, and I think it's been the best thing for my kids.
Yep.
Is they've got the physical record there. They can smell it. And that process of getting it out and putting it on, you know, that's pretty powerful.
It's multiple stages of a commitment, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's what you've imagined that it would have been like to go to the cinemas to see Casablanca or Citizen Kane, or maybe less so. I don't know what the 70s were like. We're idealizing the 40s, obviously, but 1939, the number 4 has Gone with the Wind. So you would be going out to the cinemas to watch these movies. Some people dress up, so I guess, you know, at least back then there feels like there's these levels of less was expected in terms of what you could consume in content.
Yeah.
And now we're always consuming things that it feels like, oh, well, if I'm not engaged 100% for this entire thing, if this loses me for 2 minutes, I might just pull out Instagram and just have a quick squiz to make sure that I'm engaged, you know, with something.
Yeah.
And it pulls you out of the movie, because sometimes you do need to be slowed down. And you do need to be confused about what's happening in the thing, just so that you can just sort of enjoy Let it wash over you. That will be the one thing I would say about this movie. Not the 100th thing I'll say about this movie is what I said at the beginning. It just flew. And once I stopped, I had to do less work with this than I did with Citizen Kane to slow down and pay attention, because it did feel like one cohesive piece, even though there were different elements. There's documentary element, there's flashback elements, there's different camera, different lighting styles. It did feel just like one song that just had a few movements in it that just washed over me, and before I knew it was nearly over.
Yeah.
Citizen Kane felt like Bohemian Rhapsody if Bohemian Rhapsody had like 50
great.
different, breakout versions in itself, because every scene, and it was a different, interesting journey in its own, but each time that broke for me because of these habits of looking to be consumed all the time, I would be sort of just pulled out a little bit, and I'll look up some more trivia about Citizen Kane. Anyway, we're calling back quite a lot to episode 1. Is this going to be like one of those things where we're in a circle and I say something and then the next person says something, but then they say what I repeat after what I said, and the third person has to say what the first two people said, and then before you know it, we're on episode 50 of this podcast and we're referring back to the last 49 movies that we watched every single time.
We'll try not to.
Yeah,
this is new and fresh for us, so we're just trying to navigate how to talk about these movies.
So if you are listening to us out in the world and you find, I hate that Thomas guy, he just talks over Nick all the time, please forgive me. I will get better, hopefully.
I don't think people are going to want to hear more of me.
Or if you're listening to this and you're like, I like that Nick guy, but he keeps sitting too far back from the microphone, and that Thomas guy is trying to eat the microphone like Augustus Gloop's dad. Is that a reference that you'd understand? Am I alone?
Was that Shawshank Redemption?
Next week is The Godfather. Thank you for letting us ramble for the last 8 minutes. It's been an absolute pleasure always hanging out with you.
I'm Nick.
And I'm Thomas. And have we done everything that we needed to say in our little checklist?
Yes.
I think that's
wrap it up.
I think that's the end of our podcast.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you for watching
listening.
and listening. Watching or listening. Or both. And or listening.
See you next week.
See ya.
Bye.